Me?
Have a blinker on.
No, I have a warning about cars too close to me as I'm stuck in traffic and I can't turn that warning off because it's, a smart car.
Right? Thank you.
Make a motion.
If I think I lost somebody there, if there was a motion and a second. Hopefully there was because I didn't hear everything.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second it.
Thanks. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion to approve the minutes? Hearing none, I'm going to just ask everybody to assume that they are approving the minutes unless they speak up with a negative vote. Hearing no objections, I'm going to consider the minutes approved and move us along. Thank you. Next is the public testimony. I want to call attention to the fact that we do have fairly extensive written testimony in the packet. Other than that, Anne, is there anybody signed up for public testimony tonight?
Hello?
Hi, Marissa. Can you hear me?
No, I can't hear you.
Hear me now?
Barely, very soft for some reason, much softer than earlier.
I'm not out of microphone. How's that?
That's much better.
Okay.
Is there any public testimony, Sammy or Ann?
There is no testimony.
Okay, thank you. So we are going to move right along to commission business. And Ann, I believe that's your agenda item.
So every October, according to your bylaws, every October, you need to re-elect officers. Right now, the chair obviously is Paul Thompson. The vice chair is William Wood. You can retain officers for up to 2 years. You need to make a motion to recommend, you need to make motion to elect your officers.
And Paul and the current, who is the vice chairman?
William Wood.
Have they been on it for 2 years yet?
No.
You want to be vice chair?
No.
Want to be vice chair?
Well, if it's all right with you, I'd like to make the motion that you retain your seat as the current chairman. And Mr. Wood stays in his position as vice chairman.
I will take that as a motion. Is there a second?
I will second the motion.
Thank you all again. And I know that staff had checked with both myself and Commissioner Wood, and we were both willing to continue to serve for our second years. Is there any discussion on the motion? Apologizing for the beeping that must be in the background. If there's no discussion, I'm going to do the same thing as before. If there's no objections, or please voice your objections now if there are any. If I don't hear any, we'll consider the motion approved. Okay, we'll consider that approval, and you can move us on to the next item.
Okay, so the next item is a planning commission application. And you'll be making a recommendation to council. So I don't know what's easiest since there's people on both sides that if it's easier to just ask for me to read the questions and let Mr. Wells answer them? Is that easier than passing the questions around? And Paul, you're trying to drive, so I just thought that might be easier.
And I would really appreciate it if you would facilitate this agenda item through the questions and discussion, and then eventually we'll get to a motion. But yes, if you would proceed with the questions, that'd be great.
Okay. So Mr. Wells, these questions are for you. Why do you want to be a planning commissioner for the city of Coburg?
Give back a little. Get to Mike and I and
Do you want to step up and to this table where there's a microphone on? That way Paul and Marissa can hear you.
better.
Yes.
Okay, just to give back to the community. I mean, really, I know that's a cliche, but that's really how I feel. I mean, it's been good for us and we've very much enjoyed living here. And if this is how I can help, I'm happy to do it.
Okay, what in your view is the role of appointed public official?
Boy, listen, the way the different opinions that people might have about whatever matter it is we're talking about, and use your best judgment to decide which way you think it should go. I basically just to listen.
Thank you. What special attributes would you bring with your membership to the Planning Commission?
Well, I was an architect at one time. I had a lot of training and did some practical land use planning a long time ago. And then I've been in commercial real estate for, gosh, almost 40 years now, I guess, 35 years. In all aspects of it, from planning, urban planning, development, sales, marketing, leasing. I have a pretty good background for this kind of position, I think. It can be pretty objective, I think, and looking at different matters, planning matters. So I never done this before, so I don't know, but I think I'm qualified to do it. So I don't know what I'm getting myself into, but I'm willing to try.
You do currently sit on the ad hoc committee for development code rewrite.
Yeah, I think we've concluded it. We may re-up it, I guess, in about 6 months. Is that right?
Yeah,
After
well,
we-
you're not concluded. That would be that right now it's in a writing process, so that when
Okay,
when she's done with the development of the actual form-based code, we would bring it back. There's a couple other things to review before we go to, but we'll try to time it all, so you guys have one meeting that you kind of go through it all, but so it would be like a couple meetings over the next 6 months to get to the development code adoption, changes to the development code.
but yeah, yes. I sit on that committee.
What is your experience with land use law, Oregon land use law?
I have been involved in a number of projects where land use has been an issue and is an issue. In my regular job, I'm faced with land use issues in various communities around the state and Washington all the time. It's almost daily that I'm having to deal with code and zoning matters, talking to different planning officials in different communities. So I have a lot of experience and a lot of day-to-day interaction with planning code and zoning issues.
Do you have any experience with public meetings and Robert's Rules of Order?
No, no, I mean, outside of attending a lot of public meetings, I've never been on a committee or a commission before. With the exception of the one that I'm currently on.
What is your understanding of the future growth of Coburg?
As you and I have talked about, Ann, I think a lot of it has to do with solving some pretty significant transportation issues. Frankly, it's one of the reasons I wanted to volunteer to be on the planning commission, is that those are big issues that are facing this community. From a growth perspective, I am certainly not opposed to growth, but I think there are some infrastructure issues that have to be addressed and solved and resolved before we can get much bigger than we are. All of us have seen too many communities around the state that have not solved those problems and then continue to grow, and they got to a point where they were just almost inhabitable, and we don't want to see that here. I'm encouraged that most of the community, I think, believes that they don't want to completely discount growth in the community, but they want to make it work. So that's my feeling as well.
Thank you. Have you considered the time commitment required for serving on the planning commission?
I have, and it was a big concern. My wife and I travel quite a bit. I did make Megan aware of that when I filled out my application. I said, you know, there'll be some meetings I just can't attend, but if I'm in town, I will attend the meeting. Yeah, we do travel some, so hopefully.
We will continue with the hybrid meeting availability. That's why the system has been installed.
Oh, really?
So
Okay, well
you
then,
can attend from out of town.
that'll make it a lot easier then, for
Yeah.
sure.
Have you ever received ethics training?
As a realtor, yes. We have a continuing education requirement with every 2 years, we have to put in 30 hours of continuing education, and every 2 years, they have an ethics course that we have to take. It's mandatory. So outside of that, no, but every 2 years I have to retake that course, and it changes every 2 years. So
Would you have difficulty enforcing ordinances that you do not personally support?
no difficulty at all.
Conflicts sometimes arise between the Coburg City Council and the Planning Commission. How would you handle these situations?
Well, I think there are bylaws that we have to follow. How would I handle those situations? I would voice my opinion in this commission, and outside of that, I'm not sure what I would do. I certainly wouldn't want to impose my point of view on any of the city councilors. If I can't make my case, if we can't make our case as a collective body, then that on us. But no, I wouldn't. If the question is, would you try to influence their decision? No.
Right. Do commissioners have additional questions?
No, I don't have anything.
We still have 2 commissioners on the line. Paul, are you still here?
I am here, Ann. Thank you.
Commissioner,
Is that,
are you still here? Maybe her microphone's just off.
Yeah.
No, I got kicked off the internet. Sorry,
Okay, all
I had
right.
to reset the router. Sorry about that.
My question was, do any commissioners have more questions for Mr. Wells? So, Chair, if there's no more questions, then you can ask for a motion to
yes, Ann?
recommend.
excuse me, Ann, if you would, again, it's not possible for me to do it right now, but would you be able to read the recommended motion?
It's a pretty simple, there's a motion to recommend Alan Wells to the vacant seat of the Coburg Planning Commission.
I'd like to make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
I'll second.
You give it to Marissa.
Okay.
Thank you. Now that pretty much all of us have weighed in, either making the motion or seconding, I will ask if there's any further discussion on this. And hearing none, again, since not all of us have video or other means of seeing hands raised, if there are any objections to the motion, please state that now. And hearing none, I will consider the motion to be unanimously passed by the commission.
All right. So the next,
And can I ask when, I'm
ahead.
sorry, can I ask when the city council will consider the appointment and when Mr. Wells would be able to start serving on the commission?
so the city council will appoint him at their November meeting, which is the 10th, I believe. And then he can serve at the next meeting, which would be 17th, no, the 18th.
It's 18th.
I want to say the 17th or 18th. So,
Wednesday, November 17th.
I'll be doing that remotely if that happens, yeah, but.
Okay.
We do.
okay,
Yeah, we're definitely, hopefully we will stick to meeting dates. We have a fairly significant agenda for us that day.
yeah,
Well, if you don't mind, would you mind just a couple seconds after we get going? I have a couple of questions concerning the ad hoc committee.
Oh, you got it. Sure,
Yeah.
absolutely.
absolutely. You can, I think, Paul, I don't know if you heard that, but Commissioner Marshall has a couple questions regarding the ad hoc committee that he'd like to ask Commissioner Wells. And Commissioner Doyle might be able to answer them as well.
Oh, sure.
Mhm.
Question number one, there have been minutes or been meetings that I asked for minutes for those meetings and I haven't seen anything. Is there some reason for that? There have been no minutes produced for on those meetings?
I can recording them.
They've been recording them. I'm gonna have to ask that question, John. I'm sorry, I don't have the answer for you. I feel like you guys adopted a whole bunch of minutes all at one time, so they got backed up a little bit. So we can certainly make minutes available at the next meeting, if that's okay, in for the ad hoc committee.
Because I'm assuming that these will come before the commission itself, planning commission itself.
The changes, yes, absolutely will.
What has been some of the issues discussed in these meetings, or the big items?
Marissa, I'll take that. Really, our focus was on clarifying and cleaning up the commercial code or the zoning code as it relates to the downtown commercial core.
Mhm.
And to a lesser extent, but still important, the subdivision, the wording of the subdivision code or the code as it relates to subdivisions. There were some inconsistencies, some grammatical errors that led to some questions and some issues that, well, to be real frank with you, some of it was as the result of the Weikert subdivision that was approved. There was just some inconsistencies in the code that needed to be cleaned up, at least as far as the subdivisions. The commercial code, or the code as it relates to commercial property, was, I don't know, Marissa, probably not totally redone, but certainly modified significantly and to the better. I think I hope you'll agree when you see it. But we tried to take into consideration code language of other communities like ours that we considered good. We're going to incorporate some graphic representations of what we're talking about. So when somebody says, well, what is a cornice or whatever, you see a picture of a cornice and they're going to refer in the code to other structures in Coburg that have been built, that we want you to incorporate some of this and show pictures of it. Marissa's going to be involved in that. So yeah, it's much more clear and unambiguous, I guess is the best way to describe it.
Yeah, it pretty much took out all the vagueness that's in the code and sort of give it a little better direction to someone who is designing a building or designing the land use or not design, but designing a building to fit within Coburg. So it just will make it easier instead of, we could get something that doesn't fit in.
Okay, thanks.
So the timing on this is that we have contracted through LCOG for a contractor, Zoe, who did our build out scenario, to create the form-based code. So it's going to be a lot simpler way for someone to read it. We've also asked her to match that for the highway commercial district as well. So take our code for the highway commercial district and create a one sheet form-based code for that as well. So it's easier. And then there is a few things for residential. So she will be working on that. It'll probably be after the first of the year that she comes back to the ad hoc committee to review the changes that they made, to see if there's anything different. And then she will lead some form of a community meeting where people can actually get to look at the code changes, invite them in to look at them. And she encourages people to point out any issues that they see with it. And then if it's, after that point, there'll be a final changes to the code. And then it'll come to planning commission to vote on. So you'll see it and have a chance to review it on a couple of different occasions. The other piece that the council have asked for, which will also be coming at the same time, and we hope that the ad hoc committee would be willing to review it on one of their nights that they get together, is we are having our engineer make recommendations for an alternative design for collector streets. So our design standards for streets are in our code. And right now, the collector street design standards might not be the best fit for the roads in Coburg because we're narrow. And so some of the historic streets are narrower. So we can't design up to those standards. And the reason it's important is because we are already funded to fix the collector streets in Coburg. We have a grant for that. But prior to going into engineering for those projects, we want to make sure that we straighten out the code so that they're engineered to an alternative code, which it basically means that we can, we may not have room for sidewalks on both sides of the street or something like that. So, and then also looking at the downtown corridor for what's required for just one block a block on either side of Willamette Street in the design code. And then just looking at residential streets and giving a little bit more leeway to maybe have the sidewalks, move in and out of historic trees or whatever, to just make it a little bit more Coburgish, maybe not requiring gutters and curbs, but maybe there's a berm between the street and sidewalk on one side or no sidewalks. So we're just trying to give alternative designs that would actually work for historic streets. Because right now it's pretty stringent and it's going to be hard when we start working on our street project to design some of those streets with the current code. So we're hoping to get that work done and then it would all come at the same time rather than have multiple changes to development code. I hope that all makes sense.
That's all I had. Thanks.
Thank you. So if there's no more questions or discussion on that, Anne, I think you're up with the city report.
So
Thank you.
did anybody have a chance to read my report? Did anybody have questions or you just want me to walk through it a little bit?
I don't have any questions.
Okay, so I'll just walk through some of the highlights. The water project. So the contract for the east side connection to Roberts Road has been signed and that's going to happen in this fall season. And our well design is underway. There's a sidewalk being installed there in front of Countryside Church. It's going to connect to the sidewalk. So that is going to happen. It's the Van Dyne West sidewalk.
When will that happen?
It should be happening this fall season. The contract's been awarded. The staff are undergoing a project that was directed by the council to survey all the alleys in the city. We're going to be calling in locates in every alley to make sure that we are aware of any kind of utilities or anything in the alleys. We're also going to be photographing every alley to know what's in the alley, what is encroaching into the alleys. The point of this is in the end to look at whether or not all the alleys in Coburg are essential to the city or not. Some will be, some won't be. And in the event that we don't need an alley, the city may move to vacate the alley. The other piece is that we have a lot of buildings that are encroaching in the alley around Coburg. They've been there since the 70s, some of them. There's fences, there's buildings, and there are some that were actually permitted in the 70s, but would not be illegal encroachment at this point. So we're trying to develop a policy and permit that people can ask for those encroachments to be allowed with the knowledge that if the city ever needs to clear that alley, they'll have to move the encroachment so that it can bring everybody up to being legal. Because right now we have a lot of different things happening in the alleys. So that's going to be several month project that Megan's taking on. And we're doing it in quadrants throughout the city. The annexation calendar, we completed the work session. You will be receiving the annexation agreement and zoning change application at your meeting on November 17th. The city council will have a first reading of the ordinance and receive the applications on December 14th, and then a second reading of the ordinance on January 11th.
It's coming before the planning commission only because the city council wishes it.
Right, it didn't have to be, they wanted,
Nothing the planning commission really. can
yeah,
say.
they wanted the planning commission to have a chance to look at it and make your recommendation. So you don't vote on it, you make a recommendation. Our TGM grant, we did not receive the funds for that, for updating the transportation plan. So we are still trying to decide what we will do about that. Let's see. The council did approve a land swap land owned by the Shepherd family that is adjacent to the park down here. So most people don't know that the city does not own the whole park. Rolling up to Ryan Thomas's building there where the old city hall was. There's a piece of land there that is privately owned, and there was a real fear that that could be sold and we would lose parkland. So the city is going to swap out some of the parking spaces to the south of City Hall, this grassy area, and parking spaces behind the umbrella property buildings for the parkland. So the council has approved us to move forward with that. Their land is much more valuable than the city's land, so they will be making a donation for the difference. And that's really kind of the highlights of what's going on right now. We did have a very nice meeting this week with all of the property owners. I guess it was last week, the tail end of last week. All of the property owners on the east side of the freeway and ODOT and DLCD was at the meeting. And it was more of a question and answer, what's going on, what's it gonna look like, how is transportation going to affect them? And it was a very nice meeting when we introduced them to one another, to each other. The Cow Creek Tribe of Indians has purchased the property on the corner at I-5. So they were asked point blank, what are they gonna do there? What is their idea for what they're gonna do there? And they gave an answer to that. And
What was her answer?
they're looking at a hotel and restaurants, some dealerships of some kind, possibly ATV or tractor dealerships. And basically their intent is economic development. There will be no casino. That's not in the works. And that was what they shared. So
Where is this exactly?
where the old Country Squire is, right when you're pulling on off of I-5, there's a property right there
Right.
that's been saying it's for sale.
Yeah,
So
okay.
that has been purchased.
That's the east side of the highway.
Yeah. So a lot of potential over there for growth.
They made no mention about them purchasing Pacific Pride.
No, they did not mention that. I talked to Mr. Wells and I think or not Mr. Wells, Mr. Welt. I think he's pretty dug in there. I don't think he has any intention of parting with his property. I can answer any questions that you might have regarding anything that's going on at the city. It's a lot, right?
It's always a lot, Ann. Are there any other questions of Ann that we can deal with tonight? Okay, Ann, thanks. I got home just a few minutes ago, but decided it wasn't worth firing up the laptop. So I appreciate your help tonight. And if there's no further business, I believe we are adjourned.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Exciting. Not the side of that.
Yeah. What's
So many people have looked at it over, gotten surprised that I'd be surprised if they actually